For centuries, we believed that feudalism was a relic of the past. We were wrong. The new order did not arrive with armies, crowns, or bloodshed. It arrived with a software update and an accept button. One day we woke up and we no longer owned anything. Not our homes, not our jobs, not even the code that makes our hearts beat. This is the story of how humanity was not conquered, but subscribed to. Of how the server replaced the castle and the algorithm replaced the king. Welcome to History of the Future. Welcome to Digital Tithing. Subscribe for more stories about the future. The transition was silent. The big platforms ceased to be markets and became the very infrastructure of existence. Amazon didn't just sell food, it owned the logistics ground. Google didn't just offer information, it was the guardian of collective memory. By controlling the algorithms that decided what you ate, where you worked, and who you voted for, corporations became sovereign states without borders. The citizen was demoted to digital serf. Capital, based on the production of goods, was devoured by service. The Great Change began with a seemingly innocuous word: convenience. In the late 2000s, humanity stopped buying goods and started paying for access to them. What began as a business model for entertainment quickly spread to the very basis of survival. By 2035, the great platforms of technofeudalism had consolidated what was called lifetime access. The deal was seductive. In exchange for a monthly fee, the Lord of the Cloud provided you with everything. A smart home, basic supplies, and preventive health care managed by algorithms. It seemed like the end of scarcity. But hidden beneath the code was the total loss of autonomy. From that moment on, each individual was tied to a specific corporation, on which their identity, their access to the world, and their very existence depended. If the payment was not processed, if your loyalty credit dropped, or if the system detected a risk profile, your world simply shut down. It wasn't that your belongings were taken away. It was that the objects you used no longer recognized you. Your refrigerator remained locked, your transportation would not start, and your own home treated you like an intruder. In techno-feudalism, eviction was not a physical act, but an authentication error. You became a ghost within a system that no longer allowed you to exist. By 2040, the urban population no longer owned anything, not even the most everyday objects. No one owned their car, their home, or the software that regulated their own body. Everything operated under license. Everything belonged to the lords of the cloud. We were the new serfs, tied not to the land, but to the digital ecosystem. We had exchanged the freedom to own for the security of use, discovering too late that whoever owns the infrastructure is the absolute owner of the lives of those who inhabit it. In 2045, you weren't born in a country. You were born into an ecosystem. From the moment of your first biometric registration, your currency and access to healthcare depended on your loyalty score. Using rival services wasn't prohibited. It was impossible. The system simply stopped recognizing you. Thus, the digital outcast was born. Work has mutated. You no longer exchange time for money. Your existence is the office. Traditional employment has been replaced by biometric asset generation. Every emotion and second of attention is collected for central intelligence. It is the new tithe, the harvest of your nervous system. Living within the algorithm requires maintaining your value as an asset. If your heart rate is not productive or your thoughts show dissent, your subscription increases. Work is no longer a way to prosper. It is the only way to avoid disconnection. You are organic hardware processing information for an incomprehensible engine. Leisure is an illusion. Even when asleep, your brain trains simulations. You do not work for the ecosystem. You are the resource that the ecosystem exploits. Your value is no longer measured by what you own, but by the data you generate. In the year 2045, courts of law and national constitutions became museum pieces. Judicial power was absorbed by the technical support department. In this new order, there are no crimes, only violations of the terms of service. There are no human judges capable of understanding the complexity of the contracts that govern our existence. Instead, algorithmic justice operates in milliseconds. If the system determines that your actions are incompatible with the stability of the ecosystem, the sentence is immediate and automatic. The presumption of innocence has been replaced by predictive analysis. You are not punished for what you have done, but for what the algorithm calculates you might do. The security forces are not police, they are contract enforcement agents. They do not seek rehabilitation, but optimization of the system. If your behavior generates an anomaly, the Lord of the Cloud simply revokes your user license. In a world where everything is digital, being revoked means losing access to currency, transportation, and identity itself. The law is no longer a search for truth. It is a constant updating of rules of use that no one can question and from which no one can escape. By 2046, the world map as we knew it had ceased to make sense. National governments, drowning in unpayable debts, were no longer sovereign, but had become mere maintenance companies. Today, the state is no longer the protector of its citizens, but an outsourced agent of the Lord of the Cloud. Sovereignty no longer resides in territory or the flag, but in the server. It no longer matters whether you live in Madrid, Mexico City, or Tokyo. What determines your rights is which connection node you belong to. The laws of countries were replaced by interface protocols. Politics died because decision-making power was transferred to optimization algorithms. The politicians can no longer understand or modify. National armies now protect submarine cables and data centers, not borders. The world is no longer divided into nations, but into digital domains, territories where a corporation's code is the only constitution in force. Presidents are now zone managers, responsible for ensuring that the Wi-Fi does not go down and that the servants continue to pay their subscription. While the world lives under the constant surveillance of the algorithm, the lords of the cloud have retreated to suffocatingly luxurious mansions that function as independent jurisdictions. They are not just residences. They are sovereign states within armored enclosures where national law has no power. In these enclaves, democracy has been replaced by absolute property rights. There are no citizens here, only owners and shareholders who have bought their independence from the rules they themselves impose on the rest of the planet. This new nobility enjoys the only luxury left in 2048, total anonymity. While the digital servant is transparent to the system, the lords of the cloud are invisible. They have no loyalty scores, nor do their homes depend on subscriptions that can be canceled. They own the switch. They are the architects of a reality they do not inhabit, managing scarcity and control from their technological palaces, where privacy is the gold standard and the law is simply whatever they decide to program that morning. They live like gods in a world they have turned into a data farm. Protected by the very walls we cannot cross. Beyond the reach of corporate Wi-Fi and satellite signals lies a forgotten world. The dead zones. These are territories where infrastructure collapsed, or where the cloud lord decided that investment was not profitable. This is where the disconnected live, those who were revoked from the system or who fled from total surveillance. In these wastelands, technology is an analog relic, and survival depends on barter and steel, not code. The inhabitants of the dead zones are considered glitches in the system, data errors that must be ignored or eliminated. They live in absolute technological silence, hunting down old hardware to build clandestine communication networks. They represent the last vestige of pure biological humanity, without implants or tracking. To the system, these zones are dumping grounds for outcasts. To the outcasts, these zones are the only place on Earth where thought still does not belong to a corporation. 100 years later, comfort no longer means well-being. The system continues to function, but only in its most basic form. The original promise of a better life has deteriorated into a guarantee of basic survival. Everything continues to arrive: housing, food, medical care. But everything is worse, smaller, more limited, more tailored to what is strictly necessary to remain useful. Corporations are now obscenely powerful. Not in terms of money, but in terms of control. They own energy, data, land, mobility, and access to information. They can change the living conditions of entire regions with technical adjustments that no one votes on or understands. They live outside the system they administer, protected by absolute opacity. Privacy, which is non-existent for the rest of us, is their greatest privilege. Below, the population lives worse than before, though not catastrophically so. They live within increasingly narrow margins. Housing is functional, interchangeable. Food is processed, calculated, with no real choice. Health is limited to maintaining productivity. There is no mass starvation or visible collapse, just a steady decline in living standards that becomes normalized from generation to generation. People work fewer hours, but they never stop working. Every gesture, every emotion, and every interaction generates value. The system no longer promises progress or improvement, only stability. And stability means not falling below the permitted threshold. Inequality is not seen, but it is felt. It lies in the margin of error that some can afford and others cannot. The powerful can fail, the rest cannot. An error at the top is corrected, an error at the bottom accumulates. 100 years later, comfort is no longer a promise. It is a limit, and no one remembers exactly when it began to be so. Over time, the very idea of choice disappears from the collective imagination. People no longer ask who makes decisions or why, because the system responds before the question is even asked. There is no rebellion or organized resistance, not out of fear, but out of a lack of reference points. No one clearly remembers what it was like to live outside the ecosystem, or what exactly was lost. Technofeudalism is not maintained by force, but by inertia. And 100 years later, the most disturbing thing is not that everything is controlled, but that it no longer seems necessary for anyone to control it. The pyramid is perfect, unchanging, and eternal. The code has won.